It's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Now we're going to talk about little Gus. You know, and we've talked about him a lot, haven't we? This case, just like the Jack and Lily Sullivan case. Absolute mystery what has happened to this boy. You know, he's like got that little angelic face and the curly blonde hair. 4 years old. Now, if we thought it looked remote where Desi went missing from, where little Gus went missing from is like a sheep shearing station with a homestead type place in Yunta in Australia. It is, I mean, we've seen quite a few videos about it. You literally could not get more remote, I think, than this sheep shearing. They live on a very remote place, don't they? Now, let's see if I can... If I show you this, it'll give you an idea, if you don't know already, of the sort of area where they live. So, this guy, apparently Jason O'Connell, searched the property with Gus's father. Now, Gus's father, Josh. Now, the thing about this case as well is it's quite an unusual family dynamic, isn't it? Because Gus's father does not live at the homestead with Gus's mum and Gus's brother. So he's got a little brother who's younger than him. Gus is only 4. And they live on this home, the mother and his sibling live on the homestead with the 2 grandmas. Because Gus has 2 grandmas, because one of his grandmas had a transition, you know, became a woman quite a long time ago. But still seems to live with their wife, you know, from when they were a man. And apparently, you know, if you believe what the media says, Josh did live there. Gus's father did live there at one point, but he didn't get on with this grandma. And so he's doing up another house 2 hours away that he's getting ready to presumably move the families in. So they haven't split up, apparently. Gus's mum and dad are still together, but Gus's dad had moved out because of problems in getting on with Gus's GMA. Supposedly, no, again, I'm just reporting what the Daily Mail says, and I know the Daily Mail can't always be relied on to speak the truth. But they seem to have really fastened on the Daily Mail. They're really casting shade on this GMA. And I'm surprised they're doing that so openly. So, of course, one of their reporters went there. We're going to have a look at that. Went there last week or something, uninvited. And this grandma came out with a shotgun, a pump action shotgun that she said she was going to kill a snake that was on the porch, and really shouted at this reporter and told him to get away, get out, very aggressively, very threateningly, very scary looking person as well, because very muscly, you know, even though, you know, obviously he's transitioned to a woman, but very sort of, you know, well, a sheep shearer, a farmer, you know, quite intimidating person, I would say. So let's have a look. So this was Josie Murray, the grandma, with, I mean, quite scary with the gun and the bullets in the other hand. And she insists she was only going to shoot a snake. It was just coincidence that the reporter was there. I don't believe that. I think they were definitely, I mean, they've probably been pushed. Their grandson's missing, as far as we know. The police are saying they think that Gus wandered off. Now, the big thing that the Daily Mail are saying now, and I'm surprised that they're questioning, when was Gus actually seen by anyone besides the family? And they are saying that Gus may have been missing for 6 months. So, as far as this, as far as we're concerned, and as far as because it was the GMA that was looking after Gus and his brother. Gus's mum and the other GMA were supposedly at the actual sheep shearing station. But that seems odd to me, because this was a Saturday. Now, I know I'm sure farmers don't have hours like, 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, but this was a Saturday at 6:30 in the evening. Would they be likely to be shearing sheep on a Saturday at 6:30 in the evening? I don't know. So it's really strange, and I do feel this story's getting stranger. So now the Daily Mail is saying, when was Gus last seen by anyone who's not a member of the family? Because it's all, apparently that photo that's been brandished around of Gus was taken 6 months before, when he was starting school or something to do with school. We're going to look at what now, I have to throw out a caveat here. This is what the Daily Mail is saying. Just seems strange to me that they're saying this openly without being worried about being sued, for casting aspersions, or just seems odd, doesn't it? So, up a remote gravel track near the dusty outback town of Billali North in South Australia is a little house that time forgot. Now, don't forget, they went to Josh's house. So their title of this story is Missing Outback Boy's Transgender Grandmother Greeted the Mail Reporter with a pump-action shotgun. As we reveal, little Gus could have gone missing 6 months ago. Now that's quite a sort of leading title, isn't it? Normally if they don't know that somebody is guilty of something, fancy saying that. This was yesterday. It was updated and published. So they're talking about Josh's house here. They're talking about the father's house. And they went there, didn't they, before they went to Gus's house. The 2-bedroom bungalow with its cracked walls and sun-baked tin roof sits on a 10-acre plot which is being grazed by 4 moth-eaten sheep. Alongside its driveway, you'll find half a dozen cars in various states of decay. On the veranda is a child's bicycle with stabilizers on the back wheels. The place appears to have been abandoned some time ago. Visitors who dare approach the front door can glimpse the deserted and Spartan interior. In the kitchen, the doors on a fridge freezer are ajar. On the wall is a calendar someone has filled with daily appointments until March, but they haven't touched it since. So they're making a thing of it, March. There's been, now, Gus's dad, Josh, apparently was staying at the sheep station just before Gus went missing. But having said that, when the actual day Gus went missing, Josh was in that house. You know, so there's a lot. I think there's a lot we don't know here, isn't there? This is the home of Josh Lamont, a sometime rock musician whose band, the Cut Snakes, played the pubs and bars of South Australia before disbanding during COVID. Property records show he bought it for $81,000 Australian dollars, about £40,000, in March 2021, around the time his first son, a blonde-haired boy named Gus, was born. That was now a lifetime away, for in the evening of Saturday, September the 27th, police called on Josh to say that Gus had been reported missing from Oak Park Station, an outback sheep farm roughly 2 hours drive north. We'll listen to that in a minute, that podcast. Oh, bless him. When the Daily Mail knocked on the family's door last week to gently ask whether they had any further details to share, we got a hostile welcome from Gus's transgender grandmother, Josie Murray, who was brandishing a pump-action shotgun. The child had been living there with his mother, Lamont's girlfriend Jessica Murray, and grandparents Josie and Shannon. Gus had apparently last been seen around 5 p.m. playing on a mound of red dirt that he used as a sand pit. By the time he was called in for dinner, half an hour later, he'd vanished and no one has seen him since. A huge search involving dozens of police officers, soldiers, a small army of volunteers and an Aboriginal tracker was quickly mounted. But despite scouring tens of thousands of acres using drones and helicopters, and last week draining a small lake beside the property, it came to naught. The closest anyone has come to finding anything resembling a clue came in the early days of the search when a single footprint was found in the dust. I mean, that's weird in itself. 500 yards from where he was last seen. In the meantime, what began as a simple missing persons case has become a major news event, drawing a collection of news reporters, TV crews, and TikTok true crime obsessives. So you see, they're straight in there criticising TikTok, but it was them who turned up at the door of both. Just, do you know what? I'll give up. Various outlandish explanations for Gus's disappearance, involving everything from wild animals to disused mine shafts, have been investigated and discounted. And as the case enters its 7th week, police seem to be no nearer to working out what has become of the missing child. In fact, there seem to be more unanswered questions now than there were when he first vanished. All this brings us back to Josh Lamont's house and the calendar hanging on the wall. So one of the last appointments it lists for March was term starts, presumably marking the introduction days for Gus at a local nursery school, where he was due to start full-time in January. Importantly, that trial day was the occasion when the official police photo of Gus in a grey and blue Peppa Pig t-shirt, that's the photo that's up in the corner, appears to have been taken. And as far as we can establish, that nursery school visit also represents the last time anyone outside of the child's immediate family can remember seeing him. So what do you think of that? So has he not been seen? Hi, Claire. Has he not been seen for all that time by anybody outside the family? You know, well, and you know, Blue, we don't know when Gus's dad last saw Gus. He was staying there for a while before he went missing. And yeah, Claire, why leave a 4-year-old outside if there's snakes on the porch or whatever? You just wouldn't. There's something strange in this case. It's hard to. I think if he wandered off, he would have been found by now. Because that little boy won't have gone far. Again, how far do they think he could have gone? Unless he was scared, why would he run off? Why would he run off at all? So yeah, I'd not even thought of that before, because that's the first time that's been said. Is when was the last time that Gus was seen by anyone other than the family? Was it all that time ago in March when he went to that nursery? They've not been seen by anybody else since then. Now, I'm sure the police will have looked into that. But surely he's got to have been seen by somebody else since then. In 6 months, surely they've took him into town, or I don't know. Although this, it's sort of, it's really, now the Mail are saying this openly. So what I'm saying is, whether you like the Daily Mail or you don't, them bringing this up openly, to me, feels like they're leaving themselves open to be sued or whatever, really, aren't they? Because they are casting shade on this family. It's just, so they're doing that, but they don't seem to be bothered that they're doing that. Strange, isn't it? So the Daily Mail has visited almost every property in Yunta, the nearest town to Oak Park Station, populated by only 60 people. While many residents knew the Murray family and were aware that Jessica had 2 children, Gus has a younger brother named Ronnie, no one could recall catching a glimpse of the boy since he was a baby. Neighbours in Bellally North said similar. Meanwhile, in Jamestown, where the nearest pub to Bellally North is located, a bar worker said that while Josh Lamont is a fairly regular customer, he hadn't seen Gus since 2024. Oh my God. Put another way, the missing boy seems to have barely left his home in the 6 months leading up to the day he vanished. The only people who had seen him alive during that period were the ones who then reported him missing. A casual observer might find this peculiar, but in the Australian outback, geography dictates that families can live very secluded lives. Oak Park Station is a case in point, spanning some 150,000 acres of scrubland and desert, an area roughly the size of the former county of Middlesex. God. It is 30 miles from the nearest major road. Getting from the house where the Murrays lived to town takes an hour. God, you'd have to get your provisions in, wouldn't you? I wonder if the supermarkets do deliveries. You'd have to get loads of provisions in, wouldn't you? What if you just suddenly ran out of milk or whatever? You then find yourself in Yunta, but it's more a collection of houses than a town, and consists of 2 petrol stations, 1 pub, a post office and a police station. The closest medium-sized grocery store is in Peterborough, another hour away. Yeah, I think, even though it would be nice to not bump into people like I did this morning, that's too remote for me, I think. So the Murray family have been largely silent since Gus vanished until a few days ago. Their only detailed public comments had come via a 150-word statement issued by Bill Harbison, a family friend, 3 days after the boy went missing. We're devastated by the disappearance of our beloved Gus on Saturday afternoon, it read. We're struggling to comprehend what has happened. We miss him more than words could express. So since then, there have been no appeals, nothing from the family. Which, everybody's different. People deal with things different ways. They're obviously a very private family. So there's been no update from the family. And when the Daily Mail knocked on their door last week to only gently ask her whether they had any further details to share, we got a hostile welcome from Josie Murray. In fact, she was brandishing a pump-action shotgun. "Who are you? Get out. You are trespassing. Get out. Get out," she yelled. "Are you deaf? Get out." And when our reporter attempted to apologise, she was told to shut your face and get out. I mean, it is an overreaction, don't you think? But of course, I don't know how it feels to be them worrying about what's happened to Gus, but just seems to me a very aggressive reaction, unnecessary. All you have to say is, look, just go. You've been told. You can be firm without being aggressive and brandishing a shotgun. It just. So the encounter left, the Mail is saying, the encounter left our reporter shaken, but police later sought to portray the incident as a misunderstanding. This is the police. They said Josie wasn't using the gun to threaten her visitor, but she was carrying it because she'd seen a snake on their porch. I just don't think you would kill a snake with a shotgun, would you? There's another child in that house as well. Surely, wouldn't I don't know, wouldn't you hit it with a shovel or something if you had to do anything, or just scare it away? I know in Australia they've got venomous snakes, haven't they? They've got a lot of dangerous animals there, but, and insects and things. I just don't know. I mean, we have snakes here in Spain, but they're not poisonous snakes. They grow massive, though. I've seen some massive snakes at the camp. I saw one crossing the road once. It was like, why does a snake cross the road? This bloody massive snake, weaving its way across the road in front of me. Obviously, I slowed down. I didn't run over it, but it got to the other side. It did get to the other side because it's only a narrow little sort of country road. I don't think that bit of overkill to get a pump-action shotgun to kill a snake. Anyway, according to the police, it was fine. Local Deputy Police Commissioner Linda Williams insisted there was no intent for the person having that firearm at the time to be threatening. So that's what the police said. What do you think? Let me know what you think in chat. So here's the area that he's supposed to have. No, that boy hasn't gone and run round there, and he just hasn't. It's just not true. So that explanation, according to the Daily Mail, raised several questions. Firstly, apparently, snakes are protected in South Australia. Didn't that make it illegal for Murray to shoot one? Secondly, are pump-action shotguns an appropriate tool for dispatching a reptile at close range? To me, that's dangerous, isn't it? And thirdly, if dangerous snakes really are in the habit of taking up residence on the porch, why did the family allow their 4-year-old child to play out unsupervised on the day he vanished? So the police have yet to address. Do you feel like the police know? So they're trying to, maybe they're trying to placate. Maybe they suspect the family in something. They're just trying not to rock the boat. I don't know. Anyway, the police have yet to address any of these points, just as they're refusing to comment on the question of when Gus was last seen by anyone outside his immediate family. I do think that, if they've only got proof of him being seen back in March. What we do know for sure is that Josie cuts an unorthodox figure in this God-fearing community where social attitudes hark back to the era of Crocodile Dundee, for she happens to be a transgender woman. Born Robert Murray, Josie is actually Jess's biological father, and Josie's wife Shannon is Jess's biological mother. So after Robert transitioned to be Josie, his wife stayed with him. So there must be some love there. Locals say Josie transitioned in 2015, around the time Shannon's father Vincent, a Second World War hero who'd ran the ranch for several decades, died. People were obviously a bit shocked, one told the Daily Mail, but over time they've come to terms with it. And for the most part, people have come round to the view of live and let live, which is how it should be, of course. The family have since led largely unremarkable lives. However, locals say the years since Gus's birth brought conflicts between the generations. Specifically, friends of Josh say he had spent extended periods of time at Oak Park Station, but moved out a couple of years ago due to a personality clash with Josie. He and Jess have since enjoyed a complex love life, described by one acquaintance as a sort of commuter relationship where they remain a couple but largely live in different homes. Although Josh tolerated his children living on the remote farm when they were infants, he doesn't think it's safe for kids to be out there, a friend said, and he was planning to move Jess and the boys into his home in Belleley North later this year, and that would have reduced the amount of time the little boy spent being ferried to and from school. On September the 27th, the night Gus vanished, Josh was found asleep in his home by police. It's unclear why Jess had not phoned to tell him their child was missing, but analysis of his movements that day are believed to have ruled out any involvement in the disappearance. He has since visited the Oak Park Station to assist with the search, and he's now believed to be living with family members in the suburbs of Adelaide. And meanwhile, the known facts surrounding the case are as follows. At 5:30, Shannon had realised Gus was missing. Shannon or Josie? I thought it was Josie who realised that Gus was missing. I thought Josie was looking after the kids, not Shannon. Anyway, they never seem to get the story straight. And with the sun starting to sink, the family spent the next 3 hours frantically searching their rambling homestead. After darkness fell at 8:30 p.m, they called the police. A major search began that night, involving helicopters, drones and infrared cameras. The next day and for most of that week, convoys of trucks and trail bikes brought search teams to the farm. Teams of divers explored the water tanks, ponds, reservoirs. But the dusty footprint found after 3 days is the nearest anyone has come to locating Gus, with police saying it showed a very similar boot pattern to the pair he'd been wearing. And he was also wearing a blue long-sleeve Minions t-shirt and a grey sun hat, apparently. But an Aboriginal tracker concluded that it could have been there for a week before the night Gus went missing. And there's no other footprints and the trail went cold. So, yeah, the last sort of search thing they did was they drained the dam, found nothing. Police have discounted most of the conspiracy theories, particularly those involving animals. Apparently there are very few dingoes in that area because farmers shoot them on site. And also the region is protected by a 1,200-mile dog fence to protect livestock. Crocodiles are not found. Well, it won't be a crocodile, will it, in the middle of that area? Gus is too big to been taken by an eagle, and if he had been attacked by a wild pig, searchers would have discovered evidence of a bloody struggle. And the topography makes it almost impossible that a stranger could have abducted him. The nearest major road is the Barrier Highway, which takes long-distance truckers to New South Wales. But to reach it, Gus would have had to walk 30 miles. And if he had simply wandered off and perished, his remains should have been found by now. So some 6 weeks after the little boy with curly blonde hair went missing, I don't like the way they said this great Australian soap opera. Have some respect. It's not a soap opera. And every passing day seems to bring more questions. Now, there's this podcast. We will listen to it. I haven't got time to listen to it today, but we will listen to it at some point. I know, crocodiles, Heather, for goodness sake, as if it could be a crocodile. Just like, anyway, never mind. But the crocodiles have got to be in water, haven't they? In a river. There is no river, is there? It was a dam, and anyway, it's not. There's no way he's been taken by a crocodile. Having said that, I don't know what's happened to him, but it's a total mystery, isn't it? It's very similar to the Jack and Lily mystery, Jack and Lily Sullivan. When children disappear without a trace or one boot print. It's funny that there's a boot print in their case as well. They disappeared before Gus. There won't be any crocodile. Yeah. Now, I agree, David. It makes you wonder, are the police, surely the Daily Mail aren't going to be, saying things like that unless they feel that the police don't mind them saying it. I mean, they're practically accusing Josie of knowing something about it, aren't they? There are a lot of red flags in this case. There definitely are. In fact, I want to put my thing up on red flags, put some red flags up. There are a lot of red flags in this case. Don't know, but until they said that, I hadn't even considered, that this little man hadn't been seen since March. Gosh. But now the police will know if anybody has come forward, won't they, and said that he was seen before that. They definitely, I'm sure, that'll be what the police will have investigated first of all, because it won't just take, if you say that you saw someone, your child went missing yesterday, that the first thing the police surely will want to know is who else saw this, but when was the last time anyone else? When was the last time anybody else saw Gus? Was it in March? Like 6 months earlier. He'd not been seen by anybody but his own family then. I mean, when did his dad last see him, I wonder? Heather, I was just saying that was one of the things that people were talking about, that could have been a crocodile, but, just, it's not likely, is it? In fact, I think it's impossible it could have been a crocodile. I think it's possible it could have been a dingo, or it's possible it could have been a wild boar or an eagle, but unlikely. Possible, but unlikely. I think if an eagle would have picked him up, even, they're saying that he's too big for an eagle to pick him up, but let's suppose his hat would have fallen off, surely, or there would be, or if some wild animal would have took him, surely there'd be some signs of a struggle, because even a little boy like that, he's not going to just let a wild animal take him off. He's going to put up some sort of a fight, isn't he? Unless he sadly sort of maybe got overcome by exhaustion and that, and then he would be easy to take away, I suppose, if he had no. Hi, Angel. Yeah. So it's getting more and more mysterious every day, and starting from the beginning, when you want to believe the family, don't you? Of course, you'd never like to think there's anything suspicious, but this case, like the Jack and Lily case, does get more and more suspicious every day. You think, why has Gus not been found yet? If he literally did run off, which I don't believe for a minute that he did, why would he run off? He'd be scared to run off. But let's suppose he did, how could he have got far? Just impossible, in my opinion. But then, they're going to be, when was he actually last seen? I'd like to know when his dad last saw him. And of course, his mum as well, she's been very quiet. She hasn't said when she last saw him. Or not that we know. I mean, obviously, she'll have told the police, But this has really made me think, like, if the last time he was actually seen by anybody else was all those months before. Just makes you think, well, God, could have disappeared ages ago. If he's not been seen by anybody else. Oh, this poor little one is so sad. So sad. So very, very sad. It's difficult to hold out hope for him, isn't it? Bless him. Anyway, hopefully, before long, something will transpire. We'll keep watching this case, of course, as soon as if I get any information, I'll be straight on to talk about it. We're not letting this case go. And the same with the case of Desi, if anything comes up. I'll be on to talk about it. But for now, poor little boy. I'll be praying for